Okay, you guys. So, 50 Cent has officially gone silent and the internet is losing its entire mind over it, because for the first time in his entire career, Curtis Jackson has watched his baby mama Daphne Joy get paraded around on live streams by a 24-year-old kid named Adin Ross, and 50 Cent has said nothing. Not a meme. Not a caption. Not a whisper. Zero. And insiders are now saying the real reason he hasn't blown this whole thing up is way darker than anybody wants to admit, y'all. So sit down, lock in, and let me walk you through the most shocking silence in hip-hop history, because by the time you hear what one veteran executive just leaked about 50 Cent's mindset right now, you're going to understand why the internet is convinced this is the calm before a nuclear detonation. Now, if you have been anywhere near the timeline this week, you already know the picture. Adin Ross, the biggest streamer on Kick, was spotted spending time with Daphne Joy, the mother of 50 Cent's youngest son Sire Jackson. And the second those photos hit, every single hip-hop blog, every reaction channel, every corner of X pulled up a chair, poured a drink, and waited for the king of petty himself to come flying out the sky with a caption that was going to end somebody's whole bloodline. But it didn't happen. Hours passed. Then a day. Then 2 days. And the man who has ended full careers with a single Instagram post said absolutely nothing. And now media personality Ray Daniels has stepped forward on BuzzBuster with a theory so pointed that it lit the entire commentary space on fire. So, before we get into what Ray Daniels actually said, let me put this in context, because this is not a small situation. Curtis has beefed with Jay-Z, he has beefed with Beyoncé's team, he has beefed with T.I. and his wife, he has beefed with Rick Ross for the last 15 straight years, and he beefed with Diddy so hard that he built an entire documentary around the man. That is who this guy is. That is the resume. And now here comes Adin Ross, sliding right into the middle of his personal life, and 50 Cent is acting like his phone is off. Take a look, y'all, because the reaction from the commentary panel says everything. I'll tell every man in the world, do not fool with a popular girl. Do not fool with a popular girl. I've done it before. As soon as you upset her, she goes to Instagram, says she's mad, and now she got 500 guys ready to defend her honor. Don't fool with a popular girl. Now, that clip right there, that is the thesis of this entire scandal, y'all. And Ray Daniels doubled down on it, because he said the real reason Curtis is quiet is not indifference. It is not maturity. It is not even fatigue. It is calculation. It is chess. 50 Cent, according to Ray Daniels, is a Cancer sign, and Cancers are known for holding grudges the way Rick Ross holds a lease agreement, forever and with detail. He believes the man is sitting on this one on purpose, waiting for Adin Ross to slip up one time, and then Curtis is going to bury him under a mountain of screenshots, receipts, and prime-time entertainment. But Ray Daniels also said something that stopped the whole panel cold, y'all. I really do think he's sitting on it. He's a Cancer, you know. So he's playing chess. 50 is one scandal away from just going nuclear. But my thing is, 50 made an entire documentary about Diddy because Diddy was involved with Daphne. So how are you quiet now? Now, that question right there is the crack in the whole story. Because think about it, y'all. This man invested months of his life, real money, real lawyers, real cameras, into building a documentary that put a magnifying glass on every rumor Diddy has ever been attached to, and a huge chunk of the online conversation around that project circled right back to Daphne Joy. But now, when a 24-year-old streamer is publicly hanging out with the same woman, Curtis won't even post a smirk emoji. And that, Ray Daniels argues, is not a coincidence. That is a signal. And the signal is pointing directly at the one thing nobody wants to say out loud. His son. That is the theory. That is the whole theory in one sentence, y'all. Ray Daniels believes Curtis Jackson is silent because 50 Cent loves that little boy more than 50 Cent loves winning the internet. And if you know anything about this man, you know that is a heavy statement, because winning the internet is basically his second career. But Sire Jackson is watching. Sire Jackson has a phone. Sire Jackson can read. And every single word his father types about Daphne Joy becomes a permanent part of that child's inheritance. So Ray Daniels laid it out plainly, and honestly, it made the whole room go quiet for a second. Something is making him not go nuclear, because the 50 we know, he would have already gone nuclear. It has to be his son. It has to be. Because he loves his son. Now, that is where this story gets emotional, y'all. Because for years, the running joke online has been that Curtis will drag anybody, at any time, for any reason. Rappers, athletes, executives, exes, even his own children from previous relationships. But now the internet is being forced to look at the man behind the memes, and there is a real father in there. There is a real parent who is calculating what his child is going to Google in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And apparently, that calculation is currently louder than the itch to demolish Adin Ross on live stream. But don't get it twisted, y'all. Ray Daniels also said that this silence has an expiration date, and when it hits, we are all going to be sitting up in bed at 2 a.m. watching the timeline burn. Bro, Akademiks is going to get off that Hennessy, get on his stream, start typing, start searching, and he's going to go on one of them rants. He's going to put Adin under the microscope. He's going to get his whole army on Adin's head. So I think 50 is like, I don't have to deal with it. Let it cook. Now, if you know how the hip-hop online ecosystem works, that is a devastatingly smart read. Because DJ Akademiks, love him or hate him, is basically Curtis Jackson's unpaid special forces unit. Akademiks is online every single night for hours, and once Akademiks locks onto a target, that target is going to have a very long week. So Ray Daniels' theory is that 50 knows he doesn't have to lift a finger. He can let Akademiks do the dirty work, keep his own hands clean, protect his image in front of his son, and still end up with the exact same outcome. That is not silence, y'all. That is delegation. That is 50 Cent playing four-dimensional chess while the rest of hip-hop is still setting up checkers. But here is where the story takes a hard left turn, because Ray Daniels admitted something on camera that he said kind of embarrassed him. Take a look. I'm going to be honest with you, when I saw Adin with Daphne, I said 50 is about to end this dude. And he said nothing. That's why I'm slightly disappointed. Because I biggied him up on his own show as the king troll of them all. And he's being out-trolled right now by Akademiks, and I can't believe he's this quiet. Now, that is a heavy thing to admit publicly, y'all. Because Ray Daniels is essentially telling Curtis, to his face, through the camera, that Akademiks is currently winning the troll war of 2026. And if you understand how the G-Unit boss is wired, that kind of statement is bait. That is chum in the water. That is Ray Daniels lighting a fuse and stepping back to see whether the Queen's legend is going to walk past it or grab it. And the panel around him was catching the exact same energy, because they immediately started dissecting Daphne Joy's dating pattern with surgical precision. Yo bro, she's a pro. Like, I see why she got 50, Diddy, all of them. Almost got me. Almost had me logged into my account sending her some bread. She makes you feel good inside. If you ugly, she makes you feel like you're handsome. Now, y'all, that quote right there is why this whole story went nuclear on social media in the first place. Because the panel on BuzzBuster wasn't dragging Daphne Joy. They were, in a strange way, giving her flowers. They were saying, look, this woman is elite at what she does, and the fact that some of the most powerful men in the industry have all ended up in her orbit is not an accident. It is a skill set. And that framing hit different, because it pulled back the curtain on a piece of celebrity culture that people rarely say out loud. Which is why Ray Daniels dropped what might be the single most quotable line of the entire segment. If you a man, don't be with a woman that's impressed by what you have. Be with a woman that's impressed by you. Because if she's impressed by what you have, somebody can always impress her and get in the room with her. And when a man makes a woman his wife, or the mother of his child, he's crowning her a jewel in his life, whether he likes it or not. Now, that line right there is the reason this clip has been running around every For You page on TikTok for 6 straight days, y'all. Because it doesn't just apply to Curtis Jackson. It applies to every man online right now. Every married man, every engaged man, every man in a situationship, every man swiping on an app tonight. And it hit even harder when Ray Daniels connected it back to the Sire Jackson piece of the puzzle. Because that child is going to grow up loving both of his parents, no matter what the internet says, no matter what the podcasts say, no matter what a live stream tries to imply. And 50 Cent, whether he wants to say it or not, is going to have to answer for whatever he posts, one day, at a kitchen table, to his own son. So maybe the smartest move in the world right now is to say nothing at all. But moving on, because you can't tell this story without pulling Rick Ross back into the frame. And that man has not been quiet, y'all. While Curtis has been meditating in silence, Rick Ross has been on every live stream, every podcast, every interview, trying to squeeze this moment for every drop of attention he can wring out of it. Rick Ross was asked directly whether things are better now between him and the Queen's icon, and his answer was blunt. Nah, homie. Washington. We've never been cool. Not from day one. He can't dress. He doesn't own his masters. Eminem saved him. Dr. Dre saved him. Rick Ross did it himself. Now, that is Rick Ross doing what Rick Ross always does, which is grab the biggest name in the room and swing on it, whether it lands or not. But then Rick Ross took it a step further, and this is where the internet really started to feel some type of way. Rick Ross claimed that 50 is currently living in a 2-bedroom apartment. A 2-bedroom. Rick Ross said it with his whole chest, on camera, and doubled down on it when the host asked him to repeat it. Then Rick Ross pivoted straight to the Diddy documentary, arguing that even though the project was a #1 hit for weeks straight, the man whose face is on the poster doesn't actually own it. Rick Ross said the studio just slapped 50 Cent's name on the top, cut him a $10,000 check, and kept the actual bag for themselves. And whether that's true or not, it planted a seed. It made people start asking questions. It reignited every old debate. That is exactly what Rick Ross wanted. But here is where it gets darker, y'all. Because in the middle of one of these live stream sessions, Rick Ross said something about Daphne Joy that everybody in the room got quiet for. Rick Ross implied that Daphne Joy had a background in sex work, and used that as ammunition to poke at 50 Cent for having a child with her. Now, that is a claim from Rick Ross, made in the middle of an ongoing feud, and it is not an established fact. But the second Rick Ross said it out loud, the clip exploded. And still, Curtis Jackson said nothing. And the panel on BuzzBuster caught that too. Rick Ross is telling him, take it like a player. You had a child with a sex worker. He said it out loud. And 50 hasn't responded. That's not the guy I know. Now, the panel started debating why. And the theories got wild, y'all. One angle was that 50 and Floyd Mayweather are very close, and Floyd doesn't necessarily want a full-scale war between his two friends dragging him into the middle. Another angle was that Adin Ross, as annoying as some people find him, is actually a hard target to hit, because Adin Ross has an enormous, hyper-loyal audience that turns every attack into more subscribers for him. So going after Adin Ross doesn't hurt Adin Ross. It levels him up. You have to remember, 50 and Floyd are real cool. So maybe he's picking his battles. He's not going to fight everybody. And if he goes at Adin, he blows Adin up even more. Adin is popular, but Curtis would shoot him to the moon. Now, that right there is the smartest analysis anybody has offered on this entire situation, y'all. Because the G-Unit General has spent 25 years perfecting the art of attention warfare, and the #1 rule of attention warfare is you never give free promotion to someone smaller than you. Adin Ross has millions of followers, but he does not have Curtis Jackson's cultural footprint. If 50 even mentions Adin Ross's name in a sentence, Adin's stream numbers triple that same night. So maybe, just maybe, this legend is doing the one thing that hurts a young influencer the most, which is refusing to acknowledge he exists. That is a masterclass. That is a case study. That is one of the coldest things a veteran can do to a rookie. And if that is what he is doing, we are all watching a legend flex silently in real time. But moving on to the next layer, because the story doesn't stop with Adin Ross. Because somewhere in the middle of all this drama, our guy quietly turned 51 years old. His birthday was July 6th. And people spent about 10 minutes wishing him a happy birthday before diving right back into the Daphne Joy conversation. But those 10 minutes were important. Because during that window, hip-hop historians pulled up the numbers. And the numbers on this man are absurd, y'all. He has moved the equivalent of over 60 million albums globally, based on figures that haven't been fully updated in years, which means the real number is likely much higher. He has television empires. He has liquor deals. He has streaming platforms. He has documentary contracts. He has commercial real estate that would make Rick Ross's tractor look like a toy. Rick Ross can say whatever he wants about apartments, but the paper trail on Curtis tells a very different story. 50 Cent, after your first album went diamond, no one around you thought it would be a good idea to renegotiate that horrendous contract you were in? Rick Ross would have. Rick Ross did it himself. Now, y'all, that is Rick Ross trying to twist the knife on his rival's own history. And 50 has heard that line, from that same man, for over a decade. And he still hasn't taken the bait on this current situation. Which, if you understand this man's personality, is starting to feel less like restraint and more like a trap being set in slow motion. Because Curtis Jackson has, on multiple occasions, gone on record about how he handles enemies, and the words he uses are not warm, y'all. There's nobody in control of me. I'm deciding to mess your life up. Rick Ross, I'll mess your life up for fun. This is not new. I do this for enjoyment. Now, if that quote doesn't send a chill down your spine, y'all are built different. Because this man is not saying he tolerates conflict. He is saying he enjoys it. He is saying it is entertainment for him. And when a man who enjoys conflict suddenly goes silent in the middle of what should be a 5-alarm fire, that is when you get worried. That is when you start checking timestamps. That is when you start refreshing his Instagram every 3 hours. Because he is not resting. He is loading. And the panel on BuzzBuster, again, could feel it in the room. One scandal away. He's one scandal away from going nuclear on all of them. Now, before I wrap this up, y'all, I want to zoom out one more time. Because there is a piece of this story that keeps getting lost in the noise, and I don't want us to miss it. Curtis and Daphne Joy have not been in a relationship for well over 13 years. 13 years, y'all. That is a lifetime in celebrity time. That is longer than some of y'all's whole marriages. And yet, every time her name pops up in a headline, the internet immediately turns to 50 Cent like he is her spokesman, her manager, her legal representative, and her father, all at once. And a lot of fans are starting to push back on that framing. One popular comment simply said, quote, he can't control what Daphne does, and it's not like the breakup happened 2 weeks ago. Another one called the entire expectation goofy. Another one said, quote, y'all are treating him like a husband when he's been a free man for over a decade. And honestly, those fans have a point. Because he has said, on his own live streams, that he genuinely does not care who Daphne Joy spends her time with. So the idea that he is going to suddenly reverse that position because of a kick streamer feels like a stretch, no matter how spicy the storyline is. And still, the deeper issue that keeps floating to the top is the child. That little boy loves his mother. That little boy loves his father. That little boy has a phone. That little boy has classmates. That little boy is going to read every single thing that gets typed about his family for the rest of his life. And 50 Cent, for all his petty legendary greatness, is currently choosing that little boy over the internet points he could rack up in the next 24 hours. And whether you love him or hate him, that is growth. That is quiet, unglamorous, expensive growth. Because in a world where every celebrity is racing to say the loudest thing, the boldest thing, the meanest thing, the most viral thing, this man just decided the loudest move he could make is nothing at all. And Ray Daniels put a bow on it in a way that honestly caught me off guard. He is waiting. And we sometimes think emotionally instead of rationally. But he's thinking of his son. That's his son. He loves that little boy. And that little boy loves his mama. So he's just waiting for Adin to slip up on his own. Now, y'all, before I close this out, let me hit you with one last theory that has been quietly building in the comment sections. Some fans believe he is not just waiting on Adin Ross to slip. They believe he is waiting on Rick Ross to slip. Because if Rick Ross keeps pushing this Daphne Joy angle, keeps recycling the two-bedroom apartment jokes, keeps swinging every time the G-Unit boss's name gets mentioned in a room, sooner or later Rick Ross is going to hand him a piece of ammunition that ends the entire 20-year rivalry in one clean shot. And when that day comes, he is not going to post a paragraph. He is going to post a sentence. And that sentence is going to trend for 3 straight weeks. That is not a threat. That is the pattern. That is the history. That is the receipts. Rick Ross has been in the fight of his life against Curtis for a decade and a half, and every single time Rick Ross thinks he is winning, one Instagram post from Queens flips the entire momentum. There is no reason to believe this time will be any different. So the question we are all sitting with tonight, y'all, is a heavy one. Is 50 Cent really silent because of his son? Is he silent because Akademiks is doing the dirty work for him? Is he silent because he doesn't want to blow up Adin Ross's platform? Or is he silent because he is loading up something so precise, so cinematic, so absolutely game-ending that when it finally drops, it changes the entire narrative for every person named in this video? Nobody knows the answer yet. And that is exactly why this story is not going away. Every day that passes, the pressure builds. Every day the silence stretches, the anticipation compounds. Every hour the timeline waits, the eventual response gets bigger. Because when this man finally speaks, whenever that day comes, it is not going to be a whisper. It is going to be a headline. It is going to be a Netflix special. It is going to be a court filing. It is going to be an entire brand deal weaponized into a diss track. And Rick Ross knows that. Adin Ross knows that. Akademiks knows that. Daphne Joy knows that. The only person who is playing this like it is just a regular Tuesday is Curtis Jackson himself. But y'all, let me know what y'all think about this whole situation. Do you think he is playing chess, protecting his son, or setting a trap? Do you think Ray Daniels called it correctly, or do you think 50 Cent is genuinely just done with the drama? Do you think Rick Ross has pushed it too far this time, or is Rick Ross just doing what Rick Ross has always done? And do you think Adin Ross has any idea what kind of energy he is walking into by putting himself in this position? Y'all let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your hip-hop group chat so you don't miss the next update, because when the King of Petty finally decides to speak, y'all know we will be right here breaking it down first. But that's all I have for you, and I'll talk to you later.